guys, I'm so excited. Today is the day. I'm here at Zippers Performance and we're gonna be doing an install on my motorcycle. But I may be jumping the gun, you might not even know who I am. My name is Tall and this is YouTube channel Traveling Tall. The channel is about Harley-Davidson motorcycles. We do product installations, tutorials, demos, bike comparisons, test rides, and Harley-Davidson Performance. And that's where we are today, Zippers Performance. My bike is a 2019 Street Glide. It started off as a 107 that had a Zippers Performance 124 sleeper kit put on it, which is basically a drop-in cylinder kit. It made 150 foot-pounds of torque and 130 horsepower. And I'm back at Zippers Performance today because we're doing an upgrade to it. That was the sleeper kit. The kit that we're putting on there now is the muscle kit. More horsepower, more torque. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let's go inside, and the bike is on the lift. Bob is taking it apart. We'll go inside and take a look, see what's going on. There's a bike there on the lift. Bob's there. Hey, Bob.
Hey, how's everyone doing this morning?
Doing great. And there he is. He's taking it all apart, guys. I can't wait to let you guys know what's going in it. There's a huge list of all the products that they're going to be putting on it. That's a little bit different than the sleeper kit that I had. We're going to make more horsepower, more torque. There's a few more things that you have to do to the muscle kit that wasn't done to the sleeper kit. And I'll let them explain that. So hopefully you enjoy this video. All right. So he got the engine out of the bike and he's just preparing for the next motor to go in. So let me show you what it looks like while it's out. I don't want to interfere with what Bob's doing. Look at that, guys. So that's where the 124 sleeper was and where the 124 muscle will be going. The bike is getting built right now. I'm going to show you all the parts that's going to be installed on the motorcycle. We're going to meet up with Adam. He's just going to walk us through the shop and show us all the parts that's going to be on the motorcycle. Let's see. Let's go through here and see if we can find Adam. What's going on, man?
How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Great to see you.
You're going to show me the parts that's going to be installed on the bike?
Absolutely. Come on back. All right. This is Tom. He's using our 30 and he's doing a final valve job on a set of heads that we have CNC boarded. He's cutting the very final angle on it.
So that's one of the things with the muscle. It has different heads than the sleeper kit, right?
Absolutely. We do a lot more work to a muscle set of heads. We do a full port job on both intake and exhaust. We are replacing all 8 valves with oversized valves. And what he's doing, this machine works off of the valve guide and it has a pilot. So it's cutting everything exactly concentric to the valve guide, which is what you want, because you want everything to be true when your valve is installed. So it's actually centering itself right now. Typically on like a mill, the spindle is fixed and you move the part around to get it to cut. And on this, the spindle actually floats. And the whole point is you want it to float and be perfectly true to that valve guide.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. So this is our Sunin SV30. This is an automatic CNC honing machine. Pretty much the best of the best. What this is doing right now, we're honing to size 4 M8 cylinders. So these are going to be 4 1/4 4. It's either going to be a 124 or a 128 cylinder, depending on the stroke. And this is actually sensing, as you can see on this screen here, it's sensing the amount of pressure against the stone. And what it's doing is it's only taking material out where it's necessary. It's trying to make a perfect cylinder that doesn't have any taper. And what you're seeing is when you have a cylinder that has a spigot on the end of it, like a Harley does, it pushes back. So when it's honing, the spigot actually will do this. So it puts less pressure down at the bottom, so it's not taking away too much material. So it's actually anticipating the amount of pressure that it's taking, or measuring the amount of pressure that it's taking, and then altering where it's then pushing out the stones to hone. So, you know, we did this manually in the past, and we could never do it at the rate at which the CNC can do it.
Cool.
So at the end of it, this is going to give you a perfectly straight and true cylinder. When it's clamped, down as if it were on the engine. So this is in what's called a torque plate. So see how it's just, there's a little area where it needs more pressure. So it just concentrated its work in a small area. Now it's doing the whole cylinder. There it goes, the pressure changed. Now it's taking a little bit more out of the top to be able to get it. So it's not a consistent process, but that's what it requires to end up with that consistent cylinder.
Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let's step over here where we can hear a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but with my 124 muscle kit,
Yes.
and I had the 124 sleeper kit, it is the same cylinders, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
It is the
same cylinder. Same bore.
Same bore.
Yeah, same stroke.
Right.
But where we just came from the heads, that makes a big difference. And we'll, right?
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in just a moment.
The pistons are slightly different between muscle and sleeper, but we'll get into that later. I have two to show you, but they're very similar. Same board, same stroke.
Okay guys, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna go back and he's gonna show you all the parts that's gonna be installed on the bike to make it a muscle kit.
Sounds good, let's go.
All right. What is the difference between a muscle kit and a sleeper kit?
Okay, so the big difference between these two kits, in effect, is the cylinder head.
Right.
Okay, so this has a lot more work done to the cylinder head. It has a much higher capacity for power. We have a camshaft that's mated to that cylinder head that has much more capacity. This is a piston out of a 124 sleeper kit, and this is a piston out of a 124 muscle. It's a very slight difference between the two, but you can see this has a little bit of a dish and this has a little bit of a dome. Now, in theory, that would mean this has more compression, but it really doesn't. And these I happen to know because I've said it, these are both set at the same compression ratio. Now, why does this have a little bump up and that's a cut down? It's because the chambers are different on the cylinder heads.
124 sleeper, 124 muscle. You're saying this has a little bit of a dome and this has a little bit of a dish. You see that there?
And the whole point of the difference in the two pistons are the difference between the cylinder head that we're about to use and a stock cylinder head. When we did our work to your cylinder heads, it actually makes the combustion chamber volume a little bit bigger. Right? So we do extra work. We cut to de-shroud around the valve. We put a bigger valve in, and our valves have what's called a slightly higher tulip, which means that instead of this being flat here, it's actually raised. And that helps with the flow.
Here?
Yes.
Talking about right there?
Yeah.
Let me show you guys this. Okay, so right here, this is where he's talking about, right here, guys. Instead of being flat, it's actually raised. Let's just take it down to elementary. So what is head work?
So what we're doing with head work, we've put a slightly larger set of valves in.
Okay.
Then we have gone in and altered the ports.
The ports. Guys, he's talking about right here, the ports.
The exhaust side is the small side, and the intake's always the big side.
Okay. The exhaust side, I'm not going to drop it. The exhaust side, small side, the intake side, right here. So air comes in here.
Yes.
Goes out there. And these have been ported.
Correct.
Ported means that they've just been opened up more to allow more airflow.
Yes.
So that's what head work means. And more airflow equates to more horsepower and torque. Kinda? Am I somewhat right?
In theory, yes. Your statement is 100% correct, but people get themselves in trouble because just because you have more airflow in the head does not necessarily mean you're going to have more horsepower in the end. Okay. So what I mean by that is it's never about just opening this up to as big as we physically can. Okay. It is all about math. There's a mathematical point where we need to set the diameters and then the overall volume in relation to the size of the valves, the cam, and the overall compression ratio. So, you know, why would you buy a kit from Zippers in comparison to picking pieces out? I can get this head, you know, off of eBay for $500 less, and I can get this piston from someone else. Mm-hmm. Well, when you buy a complete kit, all of these things have been sorted out and engineered to work together. We have a cam that was specifically designed to work with the cylinder head.
Right.
So you have this cylinder head is specifically designed to work with this compression ratio and this bore size and this stroke size. Oh. So there's a whole bunch of engineering work that goes in at the forefront to make sure that all these pieces are all sized correctly.
So I got a question for you, Adam.
Yes.
Now, why don't you polish the heads?
So we have a porting program. We do not have a port and polish program. Okay. Polishing would be taking this cylinder head as it sits and going in and just making the inside of these ports just look like a mirror. Inside an intake port, it's better for it not to be perfectly smooth because it'll actually prevent the fuel from sticking to the side of the wall. It helps keep the fuel atomized as it goes in. If we're talking about a blown engine where you have a turbo or a supercharger, polishing the exhaust does actually have a positive impact. Because we're dealing with naturally aspirated, if we went in and polished your heads and put another 3 hours into the cylinder heads, it would only make it faster by how much lighter your wallet is. It does not have a performance gain, and it is not something that we would do because we would rather the surface be better for the fuel than to just arbitrarily look nicer when it's not necessary.
And you can't see it anymore.
And you can see it once it's on there.
Because I'll be honest with you, I'm looking at the top of these pistons, and they look beautiful, but can't see them once they're in the motor. It's done.
And once they've run, they won't look like that for long. Okay.
And speaking of cam, what kind of cam or what size cam did you decide to go with on my bike?
Okay, so you had a Redshift 472 in your sleeper kit, and I thought it was a great cam. I thought it worked out very well for that package. Yeah, it sounds good. It has good power, but you're now going to that next level.
Next level, okay, I like that.
So you have bigger valves, you have bigger springs, you have a bigger cylinder head, and to work with all of that, you have a much bigger cam. So this is called a 552.
Okay, Redshift 552.
Redshift 552.
Now, is it a torque cam or a horsepower cam?
I would call this our horsepower cam, but you have to understand that on all of our M8 cams, balanced power was a big thing of what I was trying to shoot for. So it will make the big horsepower, but it's not going to fall flat on its face down low. Okay. So.
And this cam, is it for the 124 muscle for all of them, or just because the way I like to ride is why you chose that cam?
So there's two cams in this lineup, a 548 and a 552. And they're very similar cams. They do very similar things. But the 548 trends to give you better throttle response down low, and the 552 trends to make a little bit more horsepower at the top. Right. They're close enough to where, you know, when you're designing these power curves, you're just kind of tweaking things back and forth. You know, I said it's never going to be more than a 5 horsepower or 5 foot-pound shift. Yeah. So the 548 may make, you know, 3 or 4 more foot-pounds, but it might make 3 or 4 less horsepower. Yeah. And then this is going to be shifted to where it makes 3 or 4 more horsepower and a touch less torque. Okay. They're both going to make big power. They both sound very good, and they both run very good. They're just tailored to slightly different riding styles.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm not, well, you've seen me ride. So go ahead.
Okay, so this is a 2019 oil pump. This is what would have come out of your motorcycle. We have consistently been upgrading pumps following Harley's improvements. And there was a point when the 19 was the best pump out there, and we were installing those. Well, in 2020, Harley has completely redesigned the pump. It has 44% more scavenging, which is exactly what these engines need. Harley has in one box under one part number a complete upgrade if you have a 17 to 19 Milwaukee 8. So if you have wet sumped, this is what I would recommend. Go to your local Harley dealer. If they don't have this, they can get this for you. This is not just an improvement for a muscle level kit. If I were doing a bolt-in cam and I had a 17, 18, or 19, this is what I would do right here.
Wow. Okay, so with the 124, it's new heads, and they are ported to a bigger diameter to allow more airflow. The actual cylinders are the same as the 124 sleeper, but the pistons, this one is the muscle one, right?
Correct.
So the pistons are domed versus dished, right? And then we have, so this is the old throttle body in the intake manifold, and everything was a lot smaller on this and made out of plastic here, which worked really good for the sleeper kit, but when we started adding more horsepower and more torque, basically more horsepower, right?
It's the horsepower, yeah.
Okay. We went with the HPI throttle body and a cast aluminum manifold, and you can see how much bigger it is compared to the one that was on mine. And the injectors, I think we're running the same injectors, pretty much the same injectors that was on the sleeper kit.
Yeah.
Right here, the counterbalancer, this is taken out. Don't have this anymore. The bike's going to vibrate a little bit more than it did at idle. It's going to save weight and it's going to spool up a lot faster.
Yes.
By taking this out, it's about, I don't know, this might be about 5 pounds, something like that. So then we have the Timken tapered bearing, and it could handle a much higher load. Then we have the Dark Horse crankshaft here, and it's been balanced and blueprinted. So all these items, well, we didn't go over it. Oh, the new valves. You said, what do you call this? Tuliping again, right?
Has a higher tulip on the valve.
And bigger valves.
Right.
Right? And then we didn't go over here to the springs. What are we doing?
Yeah.
New valve springs.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about those new valve springs.
Okay, so the stock valve springs that came in your engine are very good. They're very durable, but they are limited to about 470 thousandths of lift, hence the 468 and 472.
Right.
They are sized to fit within that valve spring.
These are the stock ones.
That's a stock valve spring.
Okay.
The aftermarket ones don't look a heck of a lot different, but they have fewer coils and they allow for longer travel and more compression.
Okay.
And what that'll do is allow us to run a 500 series cam. So, you know, if that spring is good to 470, then your new spring is good to 580 lift.
Okay.
The way that we set it up.
All right.
So it's all newer, higher quality components that are allowing us to lift the valve more, get more airflow in and out, and although it's going to end up looking just the same in your chassis, you're going to end up with a significant increase in horsepower over the last build.
It's not, guys, I had 150 foot-pounds of torque at the rear wheel. The torque is great. The horsepower was great, but this build is especially for the horsepower. You're going to see the most gains out of the horsepower. The torque, I don't know if we're going to gain anything. Well, maybe a little bit.
The kicker is we are not going to lose torque. We're not going to hurt anywhere where you ride. Right. Everything that we're going to do is to maintain the torque of the sleeper kit and then just carry it out into horsepower. So a sleeper 124 is a relatively simple kit. It's a piston, a cylinder, a camshaft, and we do just a little tiny amount of head work, but not a full port job on it.
Right.
And you made huge torque with that number, 150 foot-pounds of torque.
Yeah.
All these parts are going to make effectively the same torque, maybe just a touch more, but they're going to make a lot more horsepower. It takes a lot of parts and a lot of effort to be able to then get that horsepower number up.
Right.
So you went from a very simple bolt-on kit to what we would call a full, complete performance engine build.
Okay, so one of the questions that I'll probably get is there are bigger displacement builds out there.
Right.
Why did we stay with the 124?
All right, so we stayed with the 124 in your scenario for a couple of reasons. One, because you started life as a 107, or your bike did,
right.
It has the 4 3/8 stroke. So it has the slightly shorter stroke. our experience on the dyno and riding these bikes, the shorter stroke bikes actually do better making horsepower at the top than the bigger stroke bikes. And the reason is, as the stroke length increases, the air demand increases, and it makes all of these pieces seem smaller and smaller. So with a 124, when everything is sized properly and you have the right cam, and you know, we didn't raise the compression to the moon. This is actually still the same compression. So this is going to be a pump gas build. We know that through efficiency, we can still make more power with a 124 than a 131 that isn't built to the same level of quality.
Right. Okay.
And actually, if you go back into the early days, the history of zippers, that was one of the things that really set them apart at the racetrack. Was every year the rules would say bigger engine, bigger engine, bigger engine.
Yeah.
Well, you know, these guys were a small business doing everything they could do. They felt, why would every year we make a whole new engine, a whole new combination, when if we just continue to refine what we have, even if they may have a couple more cubic inches, if our refinement has continued to move forward, we're still going to beat them.
Right.
So for many years, even with a smaller engine, they were still winning at the racetrack just because of their development. And this is basically done the same way. We're not chasing after some big cubic displacement,
right,
when the reality is it's the refinement of all these pieces that really set your experience.
There is an option for bigger displacements out there, but the 124, I didn't go to a 128, I didn't go to a 131, and someone's talking about 135s and things like that. Now, who knows what we might do in the future, but right now, having a 124 muscle, I'm going to get more horsepower, going to get a little bit more torque, and it's going to rev a little bit faster by removing the counterbalancer. And I know the 124 sleeper build was a great build, so I can just imagine what this muscle is going to be like. And I'm going to be riding it real soon. You're going to see that on this video. So, all right, Adam, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, guys. So day 2, we are back at Zippers Performance.
Morning.
Morning. It feels good out here today, don't it?
Yeah.
All right, so there's my bike, guys. Check it out. He got the motor in last night.
Yep. Primary together, and
Yeah, looking good.
so far so good.
Okay, guys, so he's getting the last heat shield put on now, and we're going to start it up just a little bit. So, first time hearing these new exhaust from Coneworks. I'm excited about it. Hope it sounds good. Looks good.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so we got the exhaust put on. Looks good. And we're going to give it the first start. Let me get out of the way. Ready? First start.
Trying to get the air out of the box.
We get the bike started, it starts to rain. And we're going to get in on the dyno with you guys. So, but that is the Coneworks 4.5, but it's a full Coneworks system. Headers, exhaust, smells amazing. We're going to get on the dyno. And then you're also going to get a ride video. everything put together. The new motor is in the bike, of course, if they got the exhaust put on, and now it's in the dyno room getting dynoed right now. So yeah, so let me show you that footage.